What do you call a fish that's got no eyes? You call it a fish. There's been a firmware update. Everybody's talking about it. They said, ow. I said, what? They said, ow. You know that speaker. That's one of the greatest speakers of all time. They've gone and made a firmware update for it. Can you please tell us what has changed? The speaker is, of course, the Tribit Stormbox Blast. And I've been getting reports. Ow. I said, what? They said, ow. There's a version 3 firmware update. And we lost all our bass. And I thought, no, because without the bass, you may as well not call it the Tribit Stormbox Blast. You might as well call it the blasted speaker. You don't have bass. You don't have a point for this speaker. I've not done too many firmware updates. I'm trying to look to get on top of all the firmware updates. There's a lot of things I like to get on top of. One of them is indeed the firmware updates. But top of the list is the pound for pound world champion. It dethroned the Motion Boom. You said it worked for Soundcore, and it turned out Tribit is the new love. I had a look. I was already on firmware, version 2.9. And do you know what the next one was? It was version 3. If it was JBL, it'd be version 2.9164AZ. But this actually makes sense. We've gone from 2.9 to 3. And it says, fixed battery-related abnormal issues. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I thought they had fixed where it never showed you 100% volume in the app. I assumed that's what was going to happen. But what I had to do was, of course, play some tracks, record them on version 2.9, record them on version 3, compare them to each other to find out where the bass has actually gone. So I did that. And do you know what I found? Well, I found on 66% volume, and I tested it with 3 bass, so 3 modes. We know we've got loads of, if you go into the app, we've got the app now for a lot of the newer Tribit speakers. Indeed, even the Tribit Mega thing, apparently you tell me has got the app, but I haven't picked that up in a while. We've got X bass mode, which is the extra bass mode. We've got the music mode, which is their apparently normal listening mode. You've got other modes, but then for me, then it's the custom EQ. We do have a multi-band slider. Here's my custom EQ at the moment. It's my neutral-ish custom EQ. Nothing you can do about the 5.5 kilohertz. But hey ho, with that, it does balance out. But what you want to know is, oh, come on! What has happened to our bass? And this is what I found. I got the wrong things here. I'm gonna have to. So, 66% volume. Version 2.9 versus version 3. Music mode. No change. I might have had something on the back of that, actually, but I can tell you 66% custom mode, 2.9 versus version 3. For me, my personal experience has been measurably and audibly no change. I can tell you X-Bass was the same thing. X-Bass before, X-Bass after was exactly the same thing. Well, maybe at maximum volume. Maybe they're doing what they've just done apparently with the JBL Encore to try and give you more battery life. They reduced the bass. They could take all the bass away, and of course you'd have miles more battery life. Battery life. Of course, it's got city battery in it, but of course you'd have no bass. So it's a trade-off. Well, of course they could have put a bigger battery in the first place, but then you wouldn't buy the Boombox 3, so they ain't going to do that. So 100% exactly the same thing. Music mode before and after, no change. X-Bass mode before and after, no change. And I'm saying, literally, I mean, there's literally no changes on all of them. I mean, I've tested all, that's 6 different ways I could have tested it. Three different modes, 2 different volumes, no change. I've mentioned it before, and I mentioned it again, expectation bias. Of course, you're no longer doing a proper A/B. You're just trying to remember what it had before. And of course, you were nervous before. I don't want to lose bass, but let's see what happens. Alan Rossi's miles, months behind. I can't wait for him anymore. And you've lost bass. I've had several reports that they've lost bass. So as we always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you ain't got issues, don't update. Especially now, because sometimes you don't get any negative reports. I've had several people telling me they've lost bass. I didn't. My bass is exactly the same. Your experience may vary. Remember, I've got early versions of these speakers. The manufacturing changes, the parts change. The standard's supposed to be within tolerances, but they do change. Different of different production lines, different production dates can be different. So I don't know if that's anything to do with it. Or maybe you didn't go from 2.9, you went from an earlier one, and if you jump firmwares, maybe there's an issue there. So be warned. Several people complaining about this update. For me personally, no change. So that was pretty boring. They did say, what did they say? Oh, you could have told us that beforehand. I thought I did. Oh yeah, battery issues. So the only thing that I noticed, it's always been flaky with the volume. So you've got to change the volume. For me personally, on my Tribit Stormbox Blast, I've got two. You've got to have it already playing music for the volume, for when you change the volume for it to stick. I found that's even more flaky, that even when playing it now, not only does it not change, but sometimes I'm using a separate app so I can get narrower volume scale, and sometimes it's going up in the app, but the actual phone volume is not going up. There is clearly issues there that have not been fixed with firmware updates. That bug, with the volume control has been there since the speaker came out, to be fair, and it's still not fixed. Tribit, if you're listening, you've stopped talking to me for some reason. You don't want to know me anymore. In fact, I mentioned before, the only one contacting me now is Transmart, and embarrassing I'm having to ignore him because I steer clear of Transmart, but you're telling me to get the Transmart bang, but there's so many other things of interest at the moment. But I will get to them. I've got to respect people that are trying to support me, but I don't do, and they know I don't do promotional videos. Of course, the olive fanboys keep coming on and saying, no, you're taking the money now. Well, I said keep coming on. I've only had one recently. They all seem to be dropping away as we go along. I've just screwed this up. Did I need it? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, so it's got quite boring. I was talking about the olive fanboys. Only one at the moment in the last week on that last video jumped in. So even they lose an interest in fighting his battles for him because he's actually embarrassed to come on my comments saying we had to delete his last comment. Right, so that just brings us back. Well, let's do something interesting. I said I've got my own custom EQ. I'm not saying for any of my EQs, it's the be-all and end-all, and there's no holy grail. It's your ears, your speaker. Don't forget, these all speakers, all of them, will vary to some extent. So the EQ will not hold across speaker. It's just generally the sound signature will hold. But just to give you an idea, then between we haven't done it for a while, between the X-Bass mode, the music mode, and indeed quite a neutral tuning. I mean, it doesn't change it massively, but just enough that if you're doing a long listen, the bass is not quite so overpowering. So it tames some of the bass. It does narrow a little bit that 5.5 kilohertz dip, and it makes it a little bit more even in the mids, and then just going into a little bit of the highs. But you may or may not like it. But here's all three modes: X-Bass, music, custom Alan Ross custom EQ. He's not saying it's an exciting mode. I'm calling that a neutralish mode. Don't need, because it's already deep bass. So that's enough for me to be excited. it is of note, the differences won't be exactly the same depending on the volume. That's, to me, a reasonable listening volume's reasonably loud-ish, 66%. When you go to maximum volume, the differences will be a bit different because it becomes more high-end oriented as the relative bass goes down, so it becomes more high-pitched. You know, they're trying to keep volume. And so the differences are not exactly the same at maximum volume. Most noticeably between 2 and 4 kilohertz, where they have a boost and I've got a dip. Actually, the dip is that is a real boost that they have. So I smooth that out. It's more obvious at maximum volume, and that will reduce some of that the volume, which may not be something you're after. Just so bear that in mind. If you're playing maximum volumes, custom mode is going to rob you of a little bit of volume, whereas there's almost nothing in it in the actual deep bass. And I have reduced some of the mid bass, upper bass in the neutral mode because it is made more neutral, as the name, as I'm saying it, implies. But it's almost in line with X bass mode. But by the time you hit maximum volume, it's about, I think, about a decibel less in the deep bass than if you're on X bass. That's the problem with these. The worst one that you keep saying, well, I just JBL, why can't you cue this? It's not an equalizer. It's not an equalizer. It's a 3-band balancer, algorithm-driven slider thing, and it does. So they all do different things at different volumes. But the JBL one does. There's too much of a difference at different volumes for me to take it seriously and spend my time trying to EQ it. Whereas, although this does different things at different volumes, it's a lot more subtle, and you'd have to do some measurements and be really weird like me to even be bothered to see those differences. So there you go. That's my custom EQ. I'm not sure if it's on my Instagram. I'm going to go and check, and if it isn't, I will post it on my Instagram. That's not a plug for my Instagram. On the other end, maybe yes, it is. Go to my Instagram, sign up. A lot of these companies do like it when you've got quite heavy social media. I'm not saying I do. I've got 1,200 subs on Instagram. I think that's quite amazing. I think it's all amazing, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, I was saying they've all stopped. Every one of them stopped contacting me. It was funny. Last year they were going. It's like a machine gun, bang, 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 all coming one after the other. Maybe it's because they had new speakers coming out, but. Since I stopped, I have to say, is it coincidence? Since I had that big break, what was it, end of October or something? Nobody. It doesn't matter to me, but it is expensive buying these speakers. It would be nice to get some free speakers, but I'm not going to go cap in hand. Oh look, I'm drinking. Cap in hand. It don't matter. That's about it, isn't it? So that would have been a post on Instagram saying no change. That would have taken about 5 seconds of your life. And according to this, we're about 15 minutes in. I don't know. Otherwise, it's no point me sitting down, is it? I'm going to sit down and say, it hasn't changed, goodbye. What's the point? I know you're going to fast forward. I don't know. Look, see how much I'm waffling. I kind of feel I owe it to you or to myself to keep talking, put some value into these videos, or just enjoy them a bit more. I don't know. All right, before it gets really, really weird, I'm going to say, much love, good night. Terry Tibbs. You probably, if you're not in the UK, you've got no idea who Terry Tibbs is, but he's a very, very, very funny character. If you've never seen the phone jacker or the face jacker, I would recommend having a look at some of that on YouTube. But anyway, enough to say. Thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you in my next video, whatever it is. I've got no idea what the next one is. There's so much that I want to do, and I've got a to-do list that's so long, I'll never get. I need a to-do list for which to-do list I'm going to be doing, if that makes sense. Thanks for watching.